Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the DFS Army Killshot podcast. I am Kyle Marley, and with me today is John Kelly. You can find him at John Kelly DFS on Twitter and on YouTube. And we're going to break down this UFC Vegas 59 card for you guys today, aka the Tough 30 finale card. How you doing today, John? And did you watch this season of The Ultimate Fighter?
Yeah, first off, thanks for having me on, Kyle. For those that don't know, me and Kyle used to do a betting show about a year or two ago now. We went for a couple months strong there, so this feels like we're kind of bringing the band back together a little bit. Been missing you a little bit, so happy to be on your show.
Likewise, buddy.
And I'm doing well. Talked a little bit before, definitely a little bit busy, and that's probably one of the reasons why I actually didn't watch this season of The Ultimate Fighter. I was trying to do like some last minute catching up just because obviously we have the two Ultimate Fighter fights, the finale fights on this card. So I was basically trying to like skip through the episodes onto when they're actually fighting. So I did that with a couple of the prospects, but yeah, definitely didn't watch the full season though.
I'm the exact same. I didn't watch any of the season. I just went to watch the fights of the ones that are fighting this weekend. And based on the level of talent that I saw there, I'm kind of glad that I skipped the season, to be honest with you. But I mean, hopefully it's a good card. Hopefully we cash in. We got another 100K up top on DraftKings, which is good to see. Still chasing that elusive 100K, but hopefully one day I'll get it. But let's jump right into it. First fight on the card, we got Stephanie Egger coming in as a slight favorite, minus 125 against Mayra Bueno Silva at plus 105. And then I love my curtain jerkers for DraftKings. Typically, they usually either treat me very well or it's like ruins my night right out of the gates. Either way, and then I know I can just go tilt enter the captain slate. But I don't know how I feel about this one. I haven't really dug into DraftKings yet too much. I've done most of my tape study, looked into all the fights, but I don't really have the salaries memorized or anything like that this week. But I feel like this might be, I don't know. I just don't know how to look at this one. I think it could go any way. I think we could see a finish on the Egger side. We could see a lot of ground control time from the Egger side. I think Mayra Bueno Silva is the better striker in this one. She's live for maybe a finish on the feet. She's a good grappler as well. Maybe she could get an arm bar from guard, something like that. But how do you see this fight playing out, and are you interested on DraftKings?
Yeah, I think I'm interested a little bit on DraftKings just because Egger, obviously with the line movement, she's now the favorite and she's $200 cheaper. So at 8K, I think she's probably just going to fit a lot of builds. But on the flip side of that argument is especially in large field GPPs like the main event, if everybody's going to gravitate to one side, we're going to get some pretty big leverage on Mayra Bueno Silva here. So I'm a guy that plays multiple lineups usually every week. So I'm probably going to take some exposure to both of these fighters. I don't think you're going to have to go too crazy to be, over the field or even double on the Silva side. But ultimately, I think the grappling of Egger, the positional grappling, the judo background, that's what's going to be the difference here. She's not much of a striker, but she is powerful. Like you said, I definitely lean Mayra Bueno Silva on the feet. She's much more powerful striker, much more technical boxer, and she throws hard, man. She's got a couple knockouts on her record. The thing is like, she's very low fight IQ. Like even in fights that she could easily win, she just doesn't do enough or takes the wrong game plan. Like you mentioned, she's able to be taken down. She's able to be controlled despite having a black belt in grappling. Most of those submission wins came against low-level competition. To your point, it's a lot of arm bars from guard, typical for WMMA, right? I don't think that's going to happen against Stephanie Egger, who does come from a grappling background. I mentioned the judo, Olympic judo background as well. I think if Egger will probably take her down, smother her, and I think she could stay safe on top. I do think she's going to be outstruck here. So that's why I originally thought I was going to bet Egger coming into the week at a little bit of plus money. By the time I got around to it, it was basically a pick 'em. I think it's kind of coin flippy. I still lean Stephanie Egger. I don't know if she's like a smash anymore at this price.
Yeah, I agree. I lean Egger in this one as well, just because I think she's the more aggressive grappler, the one that will be looking to get this fight to the ground. I liked her judo throws a good bit, and I think she can do that here because Mayra Bueno Silva kind of just accepts getting taken down sometimes and hanging out on her back at times. And even if Egger doesn't get the finish, as long as she's keeping the control time, racking up a couple takedowns, I think she could score well in the decision as well, which I always like. And I don't really see Bueno Silva scoring well in the decision. I just don't think she'll be high enough volume, and she never goes for takedown. So I can't rely on her to be the one initiating the grappling. So I'm going to be more so on the Egger side. But yeah, I mean, if a lot of people are going to be on the Egger side, I don't hate getting a little bit of leverage on Bueno Silva, because it wouldn't shock me if she got an armbar from guard or even knocked this girl out, because she does have power on the feet, and I do favor her a good bit if Egger can't get takedowns here. But I'm going to side with Egger in that one. And hopefully it's not one of those where I'm dead in the first minute of the card just by going too much on the Egger side. All right. Next one on the card, we got Corey McKenna minus 225 against Miranda Granger plus 190. I understand the line on the McKenna side based on she's the better grappler. Granger has takedown defense issues, and there's a clear path to victory here by McKenna just taking this fight to the ground and either winning with a submission or enough control time to bank rounds and win on the scorecards. But she could have done that in her last fight, and she just chose not to. So I have a really hard time trusting McKenna, especially with that type of line. For me, this one's dog or pass, because I favor Granger in a striking match here. And if McKenna wants to go out there and test her striking again, give me the 10-inch reach advantage on the Granger side. I think she throws the cleaner, the harder shots. Volume could be close. I mean, McKenna will throw some combos here and there, but there's not a whole lot of power behind them. So I just think that Granger will be landing the cleaner shots, the ones that the judges see more. And if this fight is a striking match, give me the underdog in this one. But how do you see it playing out?
Yeah, coming into the matchup, I'm like, man, this is a big price tag for Corey McKenna, who, like you said, her last fight, she proved that she's maybe not as rock solid as the price wants us to think. And she's fighting a much bigger opponent in Miranda Granger, who's going to be much taller. You mentioned the 10-inch reach advantage as well. It's like, on the surface, I want to say there's going to be value at an underdog price of a much bigger fighter, probably more proven experience, at least in terms of MMA experience. Corey McKenna, very young, and even her wins in the UFC, Kay Hansen, no longer with the promotion. Her win on Contender Series was Vanessa Demopoulos, I think. And she's got a win in her last fight. So that's actually aged kind of decent for her. We'll give her that. But basically the reason why I'm not backing Miranda Granger here on the betting line is just because I don't trust her to take advantage of those holes in McKenna's game. Like, I do think she's the more technical striker, the better boxer. She doesn't throw much volume on the feet, though. She averages like 2 significant strikes per minute, very low volume. And the issue with her career is she just can't stop people from taking her down and controlling her on the mat. Her defensive grappling is just not really there. We saw Ashley Yoder, who's not a very physical wrestler, be able to take her down multiple times. She controlled her for over half the fight, basically. So it's like, I want to back the Granger side, just being the better striker, the bigger fighter, more proven experience. But I could just see McKenna landing multiple takedowns here, grinding on her in what should be a boring fight, but enough to get her hand raised.
Yeah, I could definitely see that as well. And I haven't bet Granger either, but she is a possible dog bet for me, because I do think there's a little bit of value there. But she's also coming, like, she just had a kid not too recently. So that's always a worry. So I don't know what kind of Granger we're going to get here. So maybe I'll end up passing. But for me, it's probably going to be more so dog or pass, but it wouldn't shock me to see a big score on the McKenna side. I would just rather target other heavy favorites, I think, like the main event heavy favorite. But we will get there. I definitely wouldn't talk you off the McKenna side. If she got a first-round submission and just ended up on the optimal lineup, it would not shock me, to be honest with you. But this next fight I do like. We got newcomer Josh Quinlan minus 215 against Jason Witt plus 185. I think that anytime Witt fights, if he's able to win the fight, he's going to score well, just because it's going to come through the ground. He's going to be grappling heavy, whether that's a lot of takedowns or, getting a choke finish. And he has a big, overhand right that he could finish with as well. So I think anytime Witt wins, it's going to be a high score. He's an underdog this week. I'm interested for that reason, but he's got one of the worst chins in the UFC, and it might only take one shot from this Quinlan guy to break the slate. I mean, we've seen Witt give up 2 of those 60-second bonuses already, and it wouldn't shock me to see him give up another one here, because I do favor this Quinlan guy quite a bit on the feet. I liked his striking. I think he's got some pretty heavy striking, but it's more so Witt's weakness of the chin that I feel like the knockout's coming, rather than this other guy having some sort of knockout death punch. But how do you see this one playing out? And is this going to be one of your favorite fights on DraftKings?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I love this fight for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned. You know, Jason Witt, when he wins, he crushes. The problem is it doesn't happen often because that chin doesn't hold up. And that's what I think happens here against Josh Quinlan. Quinlan previously fought on Dana White Contender Series. For those that don't know, I do a lot of Contender Series stuff on my YouTube at John Kelly DFS. Really big into Contender Series stuff. So I tape these prospects quite a bit, basically watch every single one of the regional fights, at least the ones that are available to watch. And so I do a pretty deep dive on them. Quinlan's not a bad prospect. You know, he was originally scheduled to face Darian Weeks, and he was going to be an underdog to him, and that was going to be a big bet for me. So if that tells you anything, I think he's a pretty solid striker, got some strong leg kicks, definitely has the power in his hands. You know, 5-0, I think 3 wins are by knockout. But he does have a little bit of wrestling as well. He's shown the ability to land takedowns and defend takedowns. And that's obviously going to be tested against a high-level wrestler in Jason Witt. The problem is, even when Witt's successful with those takedowns, he's not really a threat to finish for the most part, unless you're like a really bad grappler. Like typically he's just looking to hold position. So even if he has that wrestling success, which I'm not even fully convinced that he will, even if he has that success, it's like, okay, well, maybe he lays on him for a round. Well, then round 2 starts on the feet. And in any of these exchanges, Jason Witt is prone to getting hurt. We see it in every single one of his fights. I think that happens here. And I think you mentioned the 60-second bonus. You know, we don't see that very often, but Jason Witt fights, I mean, they're much more likely to come about. So I'm definitely going to be heavier on the Josh Quinlan side with some exposure to the underdog in case Witt pulls a rabbit out the hat. But I think Quinlan probably sparks him early here.
I agree. I'm going with the Quinlan side. I think Witt might look good in the first 2 minutes or 3 minutes of this fight, maybe land 1 or 2 takedowns. But I just think that this guy's more likely to get up and then to eventually land that knockout shot. Just because I can't trust Witt's chin at all at this point. And it's probably the last time we're going to see Witt, I would guess, if he does get knocked out here. But I guess we will see. Either way, I want a good amount of exposure to that fight. All right. Next one on the card, we got Brian Battle minus 255 against Takashi Sato plus 215. We got the most recent tough winner in Battle here. I was really not impressed with that season of The Ultimate Fighter. And I think that this will be the test, I think, to see how good this Battle guy is. Sato, I mean, he's got a good karate style, but he's not going to be landing high volume. He's not looking for takedowns out there. So for Sato to score 100-plus points, he's got to get a knockout in this fight. And really just any fight. He's got to get the early finish for him to score high. But Battle, what I do like about him is he's a hard worker. He'll work that whole 15 minutes. It might not look the prettiest, but he's out there fighting for your money. And I think that just volume-wise, whether it's on the feet volume or him out there looking to grapple, I do got to favor Battle in this one. As long as he doesn't get knocked out, this should be his fight to lose. How do you see it playing out, and do you like either side on DraftKings?
Yeah, I'm with you again. Like, I didn't think Brian Battle was really all that special on The Ultimate Fighter, and neither did the coaches either, right? Like, let's not forget, this was like the last pick on that show. That is a season that I did watch of The Ultimate Fighter, and Brian Battle wasn't really impressive whatsoever. The most impressive thing about him is grit and heart. And, you know, some might say he's got that dog in him, as we saw Billy Goff on Tuesday. But I'm with you. Like, I just think he's definitely improved from fight to fight. Like, he's gotten much better shape. You know, even early on in the season, you saw him a little doughy on the seasonal Ultimate Fighter. Now he's getting pretty jacked now. I think he's full-time now training. He wasn't previously. So he's getting good rounds in. And the game's just evolving. Like, I think he's starting to put together a decent, well-rounded game. He's competitive on the feet. His striking's not great. But as we saw in the Trayshawn Gore fight, Gore was able to land the more impactful shots, but Battle's super durable. He ate every single one of them. And against a guy like Takashi Sato, who's a one-dimensional power puncher who probably needs to win by knockout, I just don't think he's going to be able to put Battle away here. And as we saw in that Gore fight, Battle won those rounds just by being the aggressor, by doing more. Gore was just too low volume, and that's very similar to a guy like Takashi Sato, who basically isn't a high volume guy, is just looking to land that big punch. And then you mentioned the grappling. If Brian Battle goes to the ground here, he's going to have a clear edge on the mat. So I'm with you. Give me Brian Battle. I think he could submit this guy.
Yeah, I'm going to be favorite or pass on this one, really all around if it was betting or on DraftKings. If I'm making 150 lineups, I'll throw a little bit of Sato in there just for the knockout potential, but my hand builds will be battle or pass for sure. All right, next one on the card. We got the biggest favorite, Terrence McKinney, minus 850 against Eric Gonzalez, plus 600. This looks like a clear easy win for McKinney to me, whether it be a knockout or a submission. I think he probably finishes this fight and finishes the fight early. He's very dangerous on the feet. He's got good wrestling, solid submissions. The only question would be that if Gonzalez can survive early, what would McKinney look like late? Maybe Gonzalez can pull out a late victory if McKinney gasses, but I think McKinney starches him in the first round here. But how do you see it going down?
Yeah, I think the same thing. Terrence McKinney's my favorite play on DraftKings this week. That's no secret. He's going to be everybody's favorite play. He's expensive at 9,500, but this is a slate where I'm more than willing to pay up for. Like Michael Morales last week, I wasn't a big fan of. You know, he was fine. He, I guess, paid off his salary. I don't think he was on the optimal lineup. And he kind of got bailed out with a couple of knockdowns there too. But Terrence McKinney, like, it's literally just like him and Jamal Hill above 9K that I really want exposure to. Like the rest of those fighters, I don't think have as much of a floor and ceiling. So I really like loading up on Terrence McKinney. I know he's going to be like 50% owned. I'm okay with getting a little bit over that just because his round one finishing equity is going to be so high here against Eric Gonzalez, who's a finisher by nature himself. You know, most of his wins have come by finish. He's a killer, be killed style of fighter. And he just got knocked out by Jim Miller. You know, I love the A10, big A10 guy over here, but he's not really known for his powerful hands. I know his boxing's not bad, but he's definitely not a huge knockout guy. Whereas Terrence McKinney, I think, could light this dude up, whether it's a head kick, a combination in the pocket. Like I think he's going to hurt him, and I think he's going to finish him in the first round.
Yeah, agreed. Minus 400 inside the distance, minus 200 to win in round one. I mean, I might just hit the lock button all in on McKinney here. I think he's by far the best play on the slate. You definitely lock him in cash games, but I might just go ahead and lock him in GPPs as well and hope that, you know, he puts up another 120-point performance.
Yep.
All right, next one I'm not very interested in. We got Mikhail Olegchaychik minus 600 against my boy Sam Alvey plus 450. Sam Alvey is 0-7-1 in his last 8 fights, and this is his last fight on his UFC contract. We got Olegchaychik cutting down to 185 pounds for the first time here. How do you see it going down?
Yeah, I mean, I see it going down like all of Sam Alvey's fights. Like, I expect him to be backed up against the fence and looking to land one of his big, powerful hook counter shots. And that's really the story of his career. And he's actually had a couple moments in his last couple fights where it's like, oh, you know, Sam almost did it here. He's able to land a shot or two. It's just that, like, at this stage in his career, especially now that I think the durability is starting to go a little bit, whereas before he was super, super durable. I think now that's kind of coming into question. Obviously, the defensive grappling was never really there, but he does have solid takedown defense. I think Alexejek is going to pressure him. He's a high volume boxer guy, not really a one punch power guy, but he is willing to throw in combinations. If he gets Alvey up against the fence retreating, I think he can rip the body a bunch, a lot of big combinations up against the fence. So I can kind of just see it playing out like that. But I would say that I actually don't think this fight scores super well on DraftKings, because even though I think the durability isn't what it was prior for Sam Alvey in his career, I do still think that he's not like this. He's not like a Jason Witt. Like, we're not just expecting him to get dropped by the first punch that he eats clean here. So I'd expect him to survive. I think Alexejek by decision, which I don't know if that's a hot take yet or not, but we'll see come the rest of the week. You know, it's a little bit early now, but I can see this one going the full 15, where it's like Alexejek is clearly winning the rounds. Maybe Alvey lands a big shot or two, but not enough to put him out. And we see Alexejek get his hand raised with a 30-27.
Yeah, I would agree. And I'm probably going to stay away from this one on DraftKings because, I mean, we do have minus 140 inside the distance for Olegchaychik. So he is in play. I mean, he's projected to finish this fight, but you're banking on him to finish the fight. If he wins a decision here, he's just not going to score enough points. He's not high enough volume. He's not going for enough takedowns. Alvey's got a decent chin. It's fading lately, but, you know, typically he's got a decent chin. He's got good takedown defense as well. So I'm just going to fade it. Hope Alvey can stay in there. Maybe even win it. If Alvey can win a split decision, he might not even end up on the optimal lineup because he's so low volume. But Alvey can also crack this guy, knock him out. We don't know what the chin's going to look like at 185 pounds for this guy. So if I'm making 150 lineups, I'll take a couple shots on Alvey. And I guess he'd probably be my preferred play if I had to choose one of them in my single entry lineup because nobody else will be on him. All right, next one on the card. We got Ariane Lipski minus 175 against Priscilla Cachoeira plus 150. Man, I'm usually not interested in targeting either one of these ladies in their fights, but I am kind of interested in this fight because I could see it being a high volume fight. I love the aggressiveness from Cachoeira, whether it be offensively for her or more so defensively, because she absorbs almost 8 shots per minute. And I think that's what puts Lipski in play. I think Lipski's the better striker in this one. Will have higher volume than normal. I actually had over 62.5 or something like that on Underdog when I saw those come out today. So Lipski's my top play on Underdog there, over 62.5 significant strikes, I believe it was. But I also think Lipski's the better fighter on the ground in this one as well. I was going to bet her early in the week when the line was a little bit tighter. I don't know if I pull the trigger now because Cachoeira is an okay striker. She's got power, a lot of strength on the feet. Maybe she could knock out Lipski, but I just favor Lipski everywhere in this one. So it's more so favorite or pass for me. But I do think if Cachoeira is able to win this fight, she probably scores well on DraftKings. How do you see it going down?
Yeah, I'm interested in this fight as well. You know, I definitely agree. Lipski, skill for skill, is probably better in multiple areas here. The problem with Lipski is, like, I think she would have a clear grappling edge, and I think she could land takedowns probably at will here. The thing is she never does. She's landed one takedown. That was in her UFC debut. I don't even think if she's attempted much since then. She did have the, the knee bar against Luana Carolina. But outside of that, we just haven't seen her proactively grapple much. And so I expect this to play out on the feet. And on the feet, she is the better striker. She's the better boxer. She does have some power as well. But Cachoeira is durable, and Cachoeira is going to move forward and swing heavies. And Lipski, I think, is a little bit chinny. She's been knocked out 3 times in her career. She doesn't react well to getting hit clean. And I think Cachoeira, even if she's being out-volumed and outboxed, she's going to test the chin of Ariane Lipski. And maybe that will force Lipski to start wrestling and grappling and then decides, oh, well, this is a lot easier. I'll just do this. But I also think there's a chance Cachoeira could just get her out of there and put her out. So in terms of DraftKings, I'll probably have exposure to both sides, but I definitely lean the Cachoeira side. I think the most likely outcome is probably just a Lipski decision here. But I am going to be more exposed to Cachoeira on DraftKings just because, like you said, I think the finishing upside is a lot more clear, and I just don't trust Lipski to grapple enough to pay off her price tag.
Yeah, I feel like Cachoeira probably has a better chance of, 10xing in a win, but I just the defense from Cachoeira should lead to some good volume from Lipski. Lipski's a scary striker when she wants to be. Maybe she could put Cachoeira away. I doubt it. I think she's more likely to get a submission than a knockout. But at like 8,400 or whatever she is on DraftKings, I think that they both have a decent chance at getting 10x or more in a win, and maybe even 100 points and ending up on the optimal lineup. Overall, people don't love targeting the women fights, but there's a ton of them on this card. So
there's
you got to pick
right?
some of them, and this is, I'd say, one of my favorite of the card of the women, anyways.
Yep. Yeah, I think there's 4 on this card, so you're probably going to have some exposure here.
4, awesome. All right, our next one on the card we got. Okay, so this is one of the. I don't know if this is correct order, but this is the Ultimate Fighter finale, the men's heavyweight finale. We got Zach Pauga minus 240 against Kamaru Usman's younger brother, Muhammad Usman, plus 200. I watched 3 fights from Usman, 2, maybe 3 fights from Pauga. I think Pauga's definitely going to be the quicker guy. He's a 205er that moved up just to get on the show at heavyweight. He's going to be the much quicker striker in this one, but he looks like just a striker. I think if he can keep this one on the feet, he should be able to style on Usman because Usman's a real slow striker. All he's really got on the feet is power. Like, he's fucking huge. Like, this guy's a monster. And the power looks like it's there also, because one of the fights he hit this guy and completely dropped him. Didn't look like a hard punch. Like if you took 100 pounds off Usman, that's not dropping anybody. But this guy's just so big that I think, even punches that aren't fast, aren't too hard, are going to be knocking guys out. And it wouldn't shock me if he knocked out this Pauga guy. But I do think over the course of 15 minutes, Pauga's going to win the striking match just by landing more volume, a lot quicker than Usman. But he's a lot smaller, and I think Usman could have a lot of success controlling this fight against the cage or on the mat. He's got some pretty heavy takedowns in his game. And I've seen this Pauga guy controlled against the cage and on the mat a little bit too much for my liking. So for me, I would rather lean with the underdog in this one. Muhammad is no Kamaru at all, but I just think that this is the heavyweight part of this is what I like. That plus the plus 200 next to his name. I would not want to lay minus 240 on this Pauga guy. And especially on DraftKings, I think we're really relying on a knockout from Pauga for him to score enough for him to be on the optimal lineup. So for me, it's kind of a dog or pass all around, but I haven't bet it yet. It is on my possible underdog plays, though. How do you see it going down?
Yeah, honestly, I don't really have much to add. Like I said, I didn't do a ton of research on these guys. I tried to watch their tough fights a little bit, did a little bit of their regional stuff, but didn't honestly go into it too much. I basically see it the same way. Like I think Pagua, however you say his name, like I think he's definitely the better striker, definitely has better cardio. And I think that's where it starts and where it ends with him. I think Usman, obviously the big size advantage, the big power advantage as well. Clearly not to the level of his brother, because if he was, then everybody would be smashing him here on DraftKings and up in the plus 200 range. But he does have a little bit of a wrestling. I don't know if he can keep that up for a full 15 minutes if he has to. And that's my concern here. But in terms of DraftKings, I'm with you. I'm willing to embrace the unknown, and just high variance fights like this, especially the lower level, there's just a lot more questions that we have on both guys. So I'm almost always going to go with either the side that's less owned, or the side that I think there's at least a case to be made that there's a lot of more upside on that side, or finishing upside, or wrestling upside, in this case of Muhammad Usman. So on DraftKings, I'm definitely going to have more on the Usman side, but it's more of just like hey, I don't really expect him to win, but I'm just going to expose myself in this way in my builds to where if he does end up pulling off the upset, then I'm obviously going to be looking good. And to your point, like this slate, there's not a ton of underdogs that we love here. So it's like, you got to take some shots on some of them. I don't think he's the worst one to take in a low level fight that I think there could be a decent amount of variance in.
Yeah, completely agree. And on this little fight metric, I had him like 239 pounds. One of the fights I watched before he was in the house, he weighed in at like 256, looked way bigger. So I have no idea what this guy's going to weigh in, but he should have a huge size advantage. And I want to see on the scales, I think, before I end up making a bet on that one. But Usman might end up being a play if that 200 sticks around. All right, next one on the card, we got Sergey Spivak minus 245 against Augusto Sakai plus 205. I don't know how I feel about this card on DraftKings. I do favor Spivak to get the win just based on the grappling alone, but Sakai is more likely to get a knockout. I think Sakai would also win a striking match over the course of 3 rounds as well. So I don't love the line at minus 245 on Spivak, but I am going to pick him to get the win just because I think the biggest edge in this entire fight is his grappling. But how do you see it going down?
Yeah, I totally agree with you in terms of the stylistic. Like Augusto Sakai, obviously much more better jab, a lot more volume. Sergey Spivak, his striking is not completely terrible, but it's not great either. Like it's basically like he's striking just enough so that you're not only defending the takedowns. He's striking so that he's able to mix in those takedowns, get the fight to the mat. That's where he does his best damage. He averages like over 3 takedowns per 15 minutes. The only thing I'll, I guess, disagree with you on is I don't know if Sakai is more likely to get a knockout here, just because he's got the volume and he's got the technical striking, but he doesn't really have the power, at least not in the sense of like the typical heavyweight one punch type of power. Like he's definitely more of a volume guy, whereas Spivak, I don't think he's going to KO him standing. But on the mat, like he's got a chance to get him out of there just because his ground and pound's really good. He's got some submission wins as well. I do like the Spivak side. I'd actually say this is a favorite or pass side. Like I don't mind parlaying, The haters will call me a juice boy. I do a juice boy parlay whenever I think there's decent spots to look at. But I do actually think I'm going to have a juice boy parlay this weekend, and Spivak is going to be one of those anchors.
Okay. Then maybe you sold me on some Spivak DraftKings exposure there. I don't think I'll end up betting him unless I want to throw him in a parlay, but I think I got my parlay booked already, and he's not in it. So
Okay.
I do think he's likely to score well if he's going for his grappling. Like, I just don't trust him to wrestle as much as he should, because I think, what was it, the Carlos Felipe fight, like, he waited 3 rounds to start grappling with that guy, and he made it a lot closer than it should have been. If he does that here, he's just not going to end up scoring enough on DraftKings. I need this guy to start wrestling early, and if he could do that, then he could score well. And I would say it's more so favored or pass on DraftKings, because the only way I see Sakai having a chance at a high score would be a knockout. So, yeah, give me Spivak in that one, and I definitely don't hate him on DraftKings. All right, now we got the women's ultimate finale fight. We got Juliana Miller minus 120 against Brogan Walker plus 100. This is the one I did the least film on. I think I watched maybe 2 of each of them. I wasn't really impressed with either one of them. I give the grappling edge to Miller, the striking edge to Walker, but I just wasn't overly impressed with Walker's striking. So I think the biggest edge in this fight is probably Miller's grappling. I picked her for that reason, but I just don't think we're getting a high score from either side unless we do get, a submission from Miller. I think that would be the high ceiling on DraftKings. So for me, it's going to be Miller or pass, but I would love to just get away from this fight. Give me a split decision where the winner scores 70 points and it doesn't matter. I just haven't seen or want to see enough, I guess, of either one of them, but maybe you've seen some more and can talk me into either side.
No, I think I probably watched the same fights that you did. So, but the thing is like, I was not impressed with Brogan Walker whatsoever. Like, I know she's had a little bit of hype behind her, like, oh, she beat Miranda Maverick on the regional scene, and like, she has some quality losses to Pearl Gonzalez and Erin Blanchfield, and that's fine. But like, she's 34 years old. Yes, she has a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. The striking looks okay, but to your point, like, I don't even think her striking is all that good. Like, a lot of these wins, like, she's not even really putting a stamp on rounds. And that one fight on the Ultimate Fighter, like in the house, she got stung with the first strike. It wasn't even a big strike against I can't remember the girl she fought. I think it was her second to last fight, or maybe it was the fight to get to the finale. But she literally got wobbled with the first strike that landed. And she wasn't even fighting a striker. She was fighting a wrestler that ended up taking her down once or twice. And then once she gassed out, she was able to defend all of those takedowns. And that's really kind of, I think, her win condition here is like, she's going to have to defend takedowns. Juliana Miller's very aggressive in terms of getting things to the mat. She's a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. She did win, I think, her last fight. She ended up getting a submission on the Ultimate Fighter. It was either that one or the one before, but she seems to have a decent ground game here. I don't think her striking is all that great, but again, I wasn't impressed with Walker's striking. So it's like, if I think the striking's somewhat competitive, and then I see the one side as being the more aggressive of the two and getting things to the mat, having the more finishing ability on the mat, I like the Lima side. I considered betting her. I probably am going to do a little bit more research into this matchup before I decide that, just because there is a little bit of juice on her now at minus 120. But as a small favorite, I definitely think she's the side on DraftKings, and I would say it's a favorite or pass for me. I think she's much younger, much more room for improvement here, the more aggressive girl and getting things to the mat. And again, I just keep going back to the fact that I really don't think Walker is all that good here.
Yeah, I agree. With minus 325, fight goes to a decision. I mean, I'm okay just Xing this fight out of my player pool, not using either one of them, but I do want a little bit of the Miller side because she was aggressive. She fought at a pretty high pace on the show, and just I liked her scrambles on the ground. She's definitely live for an armbar, whether it be, from top or bottom position, to be honest with you. So I'm going to be Miller or pass. I'm not going to have any Brogan Walker, I don't think.
Yep, same.
All right, next one we got co-main event. All right, looking forward to this one. We got Vicente Luque minus 180 against Jeff Neal plus 155. I think we're going to have a slugfest here for 15 minutes. We got 2 tough guys, really good strikers. I favor the power on the Neal side, the volume on the Luque side. Luque has a shit ton of volume also. And then Luque is a much better grappler, but he doesn't wrestle much, and Neal has great takedown defense. How do you see this fight going down?
Yeah, I think this one's going to be a banger. I'm definitely excited for it. In terms of like real life viewer experience, like I think this is probably one of the better fights on the card in terms of like from a skill standpoint, maybe not an entertainment standpoint, especially with Terrence McKinney on the card. But I think like from a skill point standpoint, like this is definitely up there for me. I think it's going to be a strikers war here between Luque, who's never in a boring fight, and Jeff Neal, who's a pretty damn good striker in his own right. And the thing about Luque is like, I would never lay chalk on Luque in matchups like this, just because he's not the type of fighter to cover these price tags. You know, he is, while his striking is good, and you mentioned the grappling as well, he's too hittable on the feet. And Jeff Neal has a strong jab, you know, a straight 1-2 punch that I think could land here on Luque. We've seen Luque busted up in the past in multiple fights, you know, whether it was, you know, the Mike Perry fight where he stung him a few times, the Barberena fight back in the day. Like he's been in so many wars where I just think that there could be success on both sides here. So I don't know if I'd plant my flag on either guy here. It's probably going to be one that I'm looking to get exposure to both sides. But again, I'll mention it again. I don't love the underdogs for DraftKings this week. And Jeff Neal seems like, you know, he's definitely got some upside here at his price. So I'm definitely going to be over the field, I think, in terms of Jeff Neal ownership.
Yeah, I don't mind going over the field on both guys. When Luque wins, he scores well, usually over 100 DraftKings points. If he gets that again here, I think he's got a good chance at the optimal lineup. When Neal wins, I mean, it's typically been by knockout, so he scores well also. But if he wins this fight, I wouldn't expect a very high score in a striking-based decision, because he's probably not going to be looking for many takedowns. I do think his volume would be upped more than normal just from Luque's volume coming at him. But I just don't see, you know, like a 100-point ceiling from Neal unless he's able to get that knockout where Luque could put up a high volume. He can mix in a takedown here or there. He can get a submission on the ground. I like both sides of the fight on DraftKings, but I agree. I don't want to lay minus 180 on Luque on the betting line. I think this is dog or pass on the betting line. I think it should be lined a little bit closer to pick him because Neal is a very good striker. But it's also not been like the Neal that we saw years ago. He got sick with whatever it was, and then he kind of came back looking like a different guy. Looked pretty decent in the Ponzinibbio fight, but I just don't know exactly what we're getting from Neal. If you give me the Neal from like 3 years ago, I'm definitely betting him at plus 155. I'm still on the edge whether I end up pulling the trigger or not, but I am a little bit interested on a bet on Jeff Neal here. I think the striking could be close. I mean, Luque's taken a ton of damage over the last couple of years, and Neal is not a guy you want to be eating a lot of punches from. He could be the first one to knock Luque out here. So I'll be maybe overexposed to both sides, but give me Jeff Neal to get the upset in this one. All right. Main event of the evening, we got Jamal Hill minus 275 against Thiago Santos plus 230. I mean, we got 5 rounds to work with, so they're both definitely in play. But for Santos, it's really just the knockout that I'm only interested in for DraftKings. So I think I might just fade it and the ownership that we would see from a main event fighter and just X Santos out of my lineup, hoping that he doesn't get the knockout. He's just not high volume enough, not really looking for takedowns out there. So I'm interested in the Hill side in this one. I have Jamal Hill to close out a parlay with Brandon Moreno from last week. And then I got him in another parlay as well. So I like Jamal Hill this week. I think he can win by a knockout in any round. And I also think he can just volume up Santos. I think Santos, what was it? He's landed like 120 strikes in his last 2 fights, which was 50 minutes of fighting. And Jamal Hill can do that, you know, in just this one fight here or in a 3-round fight even. Yeah. So I just don't see how Santos wins this fight other than a knockout. But I think Hill's much more likely to get the knockout first. I'm on the Hill side here. How do you see it going now?
Yeah, I really don't have a ton to add. You know, I like the Jamal Hill side as well. I think the volume clearly favors him. And even really the power, I think, might favor him as well at this stage in their career. Like, Santos clearly still has power, but I don't know if it's as much power as it used to be, if that makes sense. You know, this is a guy that's had multiple serious injuries, I believe, to both legs, both knees. And he's just he's been through a lot in his career, and now he's getting up there in age. Like, the volume is clearly tailed off. He was never really a big volume guy to begin with, but like you mentioned, it's definitely been very low. Like, he's a guy that has to win by knockout, and he can probably carry his power for a couple rounds, but I think it's more than likely Jamal Hill probably wins by knockout before Santos does. So I like the Hill side, and I think Hill's much more likely to win a decision as well. So I don't hate parlaying him up. Obviously, it's bigger guys. There's going to be more variance in that. So maybe you don't want to take on that risk, but I do think Jamal Hill gets his hand raised here. I think he's a solid play on DraftKings as well at 9K. I'm not going to completely fade the Santos side just because his win condition is a knockout as well, but it's not an underdog that I love per se.
Yeah, I think it's a fade for me because he's kind of like a Takashi Sato or an Augusto Sakai, where there's just none of them are going to score 100 points, even if they win a decision. So I would rather take the guys with lower ownership than Santos and just hope that they get it. I'm also more confident in Hill to get the job done than I am those other guys as opponents. And I just feel like this is one where the UFC wants Hill to win. You got a clear fight to lock up with Hill versus Ankalaev, who just fought last week. And aside from Santos being in some big fights under the bright lights already, I just can't give him any edges at this point. And I think they're kind of feeding him to Hill here so that he can get another highlight reel and they can pump him up even more. But I mean, Santos is a powerful dude. It only takes one punch to put him away. If he gets that knockout, it's going to ruin my night because I don't think I'm going to have any of them. But give me Jamal Hill to get a knockout in the first or second round in this one. And then I didn't even tell you, but we do a kill shot on this podcast. So like somebody that might go overlooked on this card, who's going to be your kill shot of the week, who could be on the 100K lineup. I'll go ahead and choose first. I don't really have anybody in mind. Actually, you know what? If you have somebody in mind, I'll let you go first because I feel like I might end up stealing yours if I go first now that I just thought of one.
Let me just look at pricing real quick. Okay,
Yeah,
so
no
overlooked that could end up on the optimal lineup.
Usually
so I'm obviously not
underdog,
give
but even
away
if
the
it's
chalk.
an overlooked favor, that's fine.
Yep. Overlooked that could be optimal.
I should have gave you a heads up on this. My bad.
No. This is good. I like this. I will say. I'm not going to say Usman. I feel like that's where you're going. I'm going to say Mayra Bueno Silva. Even though like both of us didn't even pick her to win the fight, I honestly I like those spots where everybody takes the line value in one side and it's like nobody's really going to play the other side because she's more expensive and probably less likely to win overall, but she still does have a high ceiling at 8,200. She gets a first round finish. She's a lock for the optimal, and I don't think she's going to be higher than like 15% owned. So she'll be my
I like that one.
My pick for that one.
I like that one. And I was also thinking, of people that I didn't even pick to win, like Jason Witt could possibly be a kill shot, but I was like, I don't want to do that. Give me somebody I'm picking to win at least. So I got to go with Usman and his size. If he wasn't so damn big, I probably wouldn't have even picked him to win, but I feel like he wins this just by being the bully in the fight and controlling the fight for like 10 plus minutes or getting a knockout, whether it's on the feet or the ground. So give me Usman, and maybe it'll be the last time I ever pick him to win because he's really not that talented. But hey, John, I appreciate you coming on the show with me. It was great talking with you again. I'm down to shoot the shit anytime you want. Again, go follow him on Twitter at John Kelly DFS and on YouTube as well. He puts out great content every week. But if you have anything you want to promote, John, the floor is yours.
No, that's it, man. You did it for me. At John Kelly DFS. I'm always on Twitter. Like he said, putting out weekly stuff on YouTube as well, whether it's contenders or UFC breakdowns as well. But appreciate you having me on, Kyle. Best of luck this weekend. And hopefully, if we don't chop the 100K, maybe one of us could win it solo this weekend.
Hey, man. Good luck to you. Hopefully, one of us does chop that 100K up. If not us, then somebody listening. Good luck, everybody. We'll see you next time.